everybody. It's another wonderful day because we have Katie Warnock, CEO and the founder of Staffing Boutique. Woohoo! Here to talk to us about AI and how it's impacting nonprofit hiring. And so, wow, Katie, welcome back. I feel like whenever I get to talk with you, it's always something swirling in the ecosystem of the nonprofit sector. And now AI has jumped in here and created a lot of interesting times. So I'm really excited to have you here to help us figure this out.
Always happy to be here.
It's you always teach me something, and you always set my hair on fire too. You always say something that shocks me. We have a lot of wonderful partners that never shock me, and that's Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, where Katie and her team comes from, Your Part-Time Controller, Third Sector Company, and Nonprofit Thought Leader and Fundraisers Friday, along with JMT Consulting. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy, but you knew that. More importantly, Katie Warnock, CEO and founder of Staffing Boutique. Katie, before we launch into this, can you explain to us what Staffing Boutique does?
Sure thing. We are a full-service recruitment firm based out of New York City. We do temp to perm, permanent recruitment, specifically for the nonprofit sector and the charter school space. So we do anything from admin support, office managers, executive assistant, grant writers, database support, all the way to development directors, major gifts people, interim executives, and full-time ED searches. We also do substitute teachers because we work with charters. So we're busy. We're full circle recruitment here, specializing in all nonprofits. And my clients range from international orgs that are huge to very, very small nonprofits. I get a lot of referrals. We don't do much advertising. I've been in this industry for over 20 years at this point and have my own company for 15 years, I guess. So, and we do that with not really that much advertising. So it's a lot of referrals. I work with a lot of organizations who are in startup mode and then full, established organizations. And the reason that I say that is one of my dear friends from childhood, who actually used to work at the Yankees, recently took his first director of development job at a nonprofit here in Jersey. And one of his first tasks was to get a fundraising database. And so the board hands him a list of four databases, and he talks to me about it. And I was like, I don't know if you're ready for those, they're kind of a smaller shop. I was like, I know a company called Bloomerang. Why don't you demo with them? And so he demoed with them and did the other four, and he actually went with Bloomerang. So shout out to Bloomerang.
That's awesome. Yeah. That warms my heart because I was talking with Kevin Pace, our executive producer, and the Bloomerang folks are super cool. They have really, really smart people that can engage with the folks on your team, no matter what their level is. I feel sometimes the software CRMs are so sophisticated that you need to have somebody that's been in the system, and this is not really the case. I think you can learn and grow with them, so that's cool. Well, we need to talk about AI and we need to talk about staffing. So let's get into it, because this is just really one of those things. We're spending a lot of time on AI across the board on the nonprofit show. I mean, who isn't? It's such a big topic in society right now, but we haven't been talking about it with staffing and with labor and with hiring management. So talk to me about this ATS, applicant tracking systems. It sounds a little frightening, and I'd love for you to kind of baseline what this looks like.
Sure. So applicant tracking systems are pretty much a database for, recruitment, right? So ATS systems is not new. I use something called Bullhorn. It's very specific to the staffing industry. It's a great way to track organizations as well as the job orders that come in, as well as resumes, right? So it could keyword search resumes. So this is nothing new. But essentially, the idea of AI now integrating with your applicant tracking system is what is sort of spinning or taking us for a loop, right? And looking at all the different things. So essentially what can now happen is you can put in the job description and And an individual like myself who prides herself on her Boolean search skills and really creating awesome lists when I'm specifically recruiting for XYZ skills in a job, AI will automate that for you. So input in is important based on the actual details of the job. And now it will build this candidate pipeline on its own rather than the human. So
wow.
If you're someone like me, you don't trust that. Like, how do I know that that really pulled exactly what I need? So it's not something that I'm using. However, if you are someone who doesn't come from a search background or have the Boolean skills or understand sort of keywords, etc., you might want to 100% rely on that. The whole idea for me behind AI is to utilize it to save time for yourself. So for me, I'm really good at my job. I could build out a talent list pretty quickly and know how to target applicants based on that. But, AI could do it in 5 seconds pretty much. But again, your input of that job has to be, superb. So my advice on that is a hiring manager should be doing that, not HR, because human resources doesn't necessarily know all the intricate details of what the job is to actually have that input go in correctly, right? So
interesting.
Say about that. The other, component to ATS systems is really allowing it to do sort of those repetitive tasks. So if you're working on a talent team or you're in acquisition or HR and you're constantly sending out, okay, this resume looks good, let it fire out my additional questions, let those come back to me, or let it send automatically a Calendly to book an interview with me because I do like the resume that was sent to me. So AI is really good at, again, those repetitive tasks that take up so much time. I would suggest strongly setting up some sort of automations and workflows through your ATS to take those hard, time-consuming tasks off your plate.
Mm-hmm. Is this the sort of thing that the applicants have any idea that this is going on?
I think so. I mean,
Okay.
I think so. I can see from the amount of emails that I'm getting in a day, as opposed to 4 months ago, that I could see what's an actual like newsletter on someone's mailing list where they're, spamming me information, where you understand that those are targeted lists that someone is sending out, right? Like, so for instance, we just had fundraising day last month at the Marriott Marquis. We send out a one email blast to all the attendees to that. We were a sponsor. Thanks for stopping by, yada, yada, yada. Those people are captured, but I wrote that email. Mm-hmm. There's something different in basically AI pulling a list of people that could or could not be appropriate for this, and now just sort of spamming them with information. You can definitely see based on the verbiage and how the signature looks, that it's an AI sort of situation. In terms of scheduling an interview, that should be automated. I feel like candidates should kind of expect that. When we book a candidate on a job, an automation email goes forward. This is how we do payroll, this is et cetera. So it's automated. It's coming from me, but it's an automation, So there is sort of that in between, but I feel like some things you could pretty much tell it's AI.
Yeah, really, really interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now that you've kind of laid the groundwork for this, let's talk about keywords, because I think this is a fascinating aspect. You mentioned this when we started our conversation. Talk to us about what you're seeing and what this actually means.
Yeah, so keywords are huge, right? Because let's just talk before AI. You want to be elaborate and detail oriented on the things that you've done on your resume, right? So, you didn't just use a fundraising database. Which one did you use? You want to be really explicit with your words because you want to be able to be searchable to HR. And this is where I don't love HR, because a lot of times a hiring manager says XYZ, and then they just go keyword search. And if they didn't do the right keyword search, an applicant is essentially sitting in that black hole of resumes. They've never even been looked at. So if you, again, are inputting specific details about a job, based off of a job description into your ATS, it's imperative for a candidate looking for a job to have those sorts of skills and keywords on their resume for AI to be able to pull the talent list and then to, basically email blast them or pull that job for a hiring manager. So be elaborate and specific about the skills that you have and put them on your resume. Keywords are huge.
So it's really an interesting thing because it's not what I think a lot of us are thinking. Oh, it needs to be generic, like nonprofit management. Okay, well, that's good. But you're saying narrow it down and funnel it down.
Yeah, I mean, even something like if you're a grant writer, well, make sure that you're having foundation giving or corporate giving or institutional giving and having those sorts of keywords laid out specifically on your resume. Okay, you might have planned events. Have you done a gala? Have you done a golf outing? Have you done a silent auction? Having those sorts of things on your resume go a really long way. I'm doing a search right now for one of my nonprofit clients who has more of a tech mission, and it is more on the IT side of searches for us. So we are doing a product designer search, which means full end-to-end development for an app, right? Mm-hmm. So I was really happy with my list of candidates that came through, but then I went back to the chief hiring manager who is running this product, and she was like, I really need someone from gaming and learning, right? So now I need, I got 150 applicants on that search. So now I have to start over, and specifically I'm looking for someone that's coming out of education, learning, apps, or gaming, right? So having that experience on your resume, it goes a long way. That would enable me to pull those types of people right off the bat, ed tech, etc., gaming, those words need to be on your resume.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you for giving us an example of that. That's fascinating. Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of times in a job search and with resumes, we were always taught or we heard, keep it general so that the resume works for everyone, right? And it's just the opposite, looking at it more specific. Yeah, really interesting. Okay, so we put those two things together. Let's talk about AI software and how it actually can engage in video interviews and that next level. This is, I think, a little bit shocking to a lot of people, including myself.
I have a lot of thoughts on this. So at the beginning of the year, when AI was pretty much taking over, all the staffing industry, newsletters and magazines were saying what? They were like, AI is going to replace your job, and it's really taken a turn because, I just read something about 3 weeks ago that was saying that candidates are now using AI to answer interview questions via Zoom. So AI is enabled. Essentially, there are apps for that, which is essentially, once again, turning that whole idea on its head. AI is answering the questions or giving the candidate notes that's actually on a Zoom. So which the whole purpose of the article was now to say, okay, well, now we're not even going to do Zoom interviews. We have to go back to in-office interviews, right? So what was essentially meant to save so much time, because it is so much easier to Zoom interview someone, it's actually bringing us back to the basics of what we used to do, right? That's interesting to me. That's interesting to me on so many levels. When I started to prep for this, this conversation that we were having, obviously there are AI interview softwares out there where essentially you can make a video, or AI can make a video about the imperative questions that you need to ask for your company or your organization for your job. And then you can link that directly to interested candidates. And then the candidate can answer the questions. And then it rates you based on not only your answers, but body language, vocals, it's judging you. It gives you a score. And then the highest scores obviously are pushed onto the hiring manager, and then the hiring manager decides on what they want to do. So this is extremely efficient. It's a huge time saver, I think, especially if you're going to get a job with 150 responses, which I just did for this product designer role. But at the same time, that personal touch still needs to be there. And, a huge portion of human resources or recruitment is relationships, right? So if I sit here and I preach, about making your organization be a great organization, even if you're not hiring a person, you never want someone to say, well, that place didn't hire me, Right. So if you can full circle this, if that's how you're interviewing, you're not giving a personal touch to anyone, right? So yeah, AI is great again, but there is human engagement that needs to occur when interviewing, because at the end of the day, it is human resources, and that's right in the name.
Yeah, it's such an interesting aspect. I had never thought about going back to the in person because of this engagement on the other side. I can tell you that even with the nonprofit show, people get nervous to come on, and we have a big audience. We're #1 ranked show. I mean, for all those things, there's a lot of pressure for our guests. And when guests come on and they have notes and they want to read their notes, you can tell it's very manufactured versus like if they come on and they're just more comfortable having a conversation or behaving with us as they would if we were meeting for coffee, right?
For sure.
And so it's an interesting aspect to see this interpersonal dynamic kind of being picked up and watched and monitored.
Yeah, I mean, I love just kind of having a conversation with you. I have some highlights of what I want to talk about based on research I've done or things that I've seen, but I definitely just like to have a conversation. I think that that's the whole purpose of this, and that's why people like long form podcasts, right? Because they like to hear the back and forth and the stories. We really build relationships when we're telling stories and learning from each other. So AI is not doing that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay, so then let's talk about this even further. And when we think about, the tech skills and the scores and education, how do you see this moving forward? Are we still just going to be using it for those measurements of what's in the resume, or are you seeing this going to be, going even further? Because it seems to me that if you got 150 resumes or potential applicants, you can't physically go through 150 people to get to that final group, right?
Sure.
So you're going to have to use these screening tools. Where do you see this going?
It's helpful. It's a time saver. For instance, like we use LinkedIn Recruiter, which is recruiter based in LinkedIn. It's specifically like for staffing firms or organizations that are hiring at scale. And we plug in qualifying questions. So we post a job and then we say, are you available to start immediately? Do you have a college degree? Are you a New Jersey certified? Blah, blah, blah. So now it scores them based on that. And then the people based on scoring are what's fed to me first, and if I still don't like those people, I could kind of broaden it out and go through it myself. So it's saving time for sure, but I can't imagine someone like me who has seen recruiting, over the past, basically 20 years, right?
Right.
Ever really rely on it. I can only see myself taking it on in small doses. And even when we spoke, I think in February or March, I think we were talking about something specific about AI. It wasn't regarding recruitment. And I was just saying, there's ways to start to play with AI that would work for you. You don't have to fully embrace it. But again, for the repetitive tasks, for saving time on emails, even for HR compliance, putting a situation into AI to bang out the correct way to answer it or answer it through email is a huge time saver. But I don't see myself ever 100% embracing it. And quite frankly, I don't think anyone that is in my generation would, right? Like it's someone who is probably under 30 it would fully embrace it and trust it. And maybe that would be a great asset to an organization, but I don't know if I can ever do that, right? It's kind of like putting your navigation address and then you have to fully trust the navigation, even though you know where to go. It's kind of like that.
Oh my God. I love that you used that example because that totally says it all.
Yeah. Cause like I use Waze. So you know how Waze is like, it'll take you like, I don't know. And then I just start to play with my Waze and I go a different way and I see which way save more time.
Well, it's very interesting that you put it in those terms because that's when time served in your industry or on this planet becomes your friend or your foe, right? Because you develop a skill set that allows you to be a little bit more judicious and observant, right?
Yeah,
You can make decisions that might be hard to articulate to somebody else because they're more internal, and I don't want to use the word gut based, but they're your sensitivity based on all these years and experiences, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, when you had asked me what we should do a topic on, and I said this, I was thinking to myself after the fact, like, shit, oh, sorry. Like, I'm not the AI superstar, you know, like, I don't have examples of which, you know, frameworks you should be using or which apps. So then obviously preparing for this, you know, I typed into Grok, hey Grok, give me a recruitment strategy for nonprofits using specifically AI tools. And it basically typed me up a whole nice thing mentioning different, you know, platforms to use specifically for interviewing, etc. So if you're someone who wants to fully embrace it, you just use AI and it'll tell you what apps are out there, what tools you should use, and how to implement it. You're all set.
Right. It's really an interesting thing because even to prepare for this conversation, looping that in to provide a structure and a framework, I think is absolutely fascinating. And I think, frankly, you know, if you and I were having a conversation about accounting or fundraising, we would still be using those tools, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Pulling those in. So you've got to have a grasp on this at minimum. To understand what the ecosystem around you is.
Yeah.
You know, last but not least, I want to kind of finish up with something that you talked about are those soft skills and personalities in interviewing. Over the time that I've worked with you for the last, now we're in our 6th year working together, so much has changed. And because of COVID and because of technology, we didn't have those one-on-one relationships. In person, I should say, right? And now you mentioned this, the problem with potential Zoom interviews or exchanges. Do you think we're going to go back to this in-person situation more fully?
I do.
You do?
I do something. Something is going to change. You know, I'm learning more. And again, I'm in my, oh my goodness, my early 40s, right? You know, I'm learning that more kids, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds are going back. I just saw on the news that they're looking for Blackberries because they want to get away from smartphones, right? They want to go back because they don't want to be online and plugged in. There's some sort of, you know, pendulum swinging hard back and pulling away from this because you just don't even know what's real anymore, right? So how everything is fake. Oh my goodness. I saw this crazy meme or something got fed to me on my Instagram the other day. It was like, a very old woman with like a pink Lambo, and she was giving like relationship advice. And it was so funny because I was like, oh my God, I love this woman. And she was like, it's better to give 20 guys a chance rather than one guy 20 chances. And I was like, that's brilliant, right? And then this morning, I just saw that lady on the news that she's AI. Like, and every single newscaster was like, oh my goodness, I saw that and I thought that she was real. And they had the CEO of the company that created it. It's called like, I forget, I don't know. It was something real AI. And he was like, we're using super ultra real people to get messages across. I 100% thought this lady was real, you know, like I thought it was someone's grandma. So how do you trust anything anymore? How do you even trust a resume is written by someone who actually did the job? You know, AI is writing these resumes. How are we accurately qualifying people for jobs if they're just saying what they did and then AI is generating the resume? I just don't understand. There has to be some sort of reversal.
Well, and if you think about working remotely or people that are, you know, like, yeah, I'm going to get a job just to tide me over and this might not be a long-term thing. I might be found out. You know, there's a lot of incentive to jump into this and not expect for it to be successful, but that the applicant's just going to ride the wave until they're found out, right?
Right. Yeah,
you know, exactly. That's frightening. That's actually really frightening for an organization.
It's frightening.
Yeah. It's been so interesting to talk to you about this. You know, I find that the more sophisticated we become as a society, the more we have to kind of step back and rely on our humanity, right? Like to
love that. Yeah.
like we have to be meeting with our clients. We have to be meeting with our staff and our donors. You said something right out the gate this morning, and that is the aspect of relationships, and so we've got to be leaning into that and expecting that to be the North Star versus maybe something that gets generated. Because ultimately that will protect us, right? From problems. I just will say problems. So interesting.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating. Well, this is a conversation that's not over, my friend. We will be having this more and more as new things come along. And we look forward to you, Katie Warnock, CEO and founder of Staffing Boutique, to help us understand and help guide us through these things. There's a lot going on in the labor market. There's a lot going on in staffing. And I thought when, we first met during COVID, that was going to be the pinnacle of all the crazy, and no.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I was just reading on LinkedIn over the weekend about return to work, orders basically from employers, and essentially employees are just not obeying and not returning to work. So that's essentially how these organizations are laying off, right? So anyone that is not obeying the return to work orders is getting laid off, and they could probably easily supplement these jobs with AI.
Yeah, so interesting. Really interesting. Well, if you want to learn more about Staffing Boutique, Katie and her amazing team, check out staffingboutique.org, and you can learn all about their work, their theories and their philosophies on how they work with the nonprofit sector and the charter school sector. It's absolutely fascinating. And Katie, we always learn so much from you, and I feel like you're on the leading edge of things because you are in New York. I feel like things then kind of start to filter across the country. And so when we talk with you, I always feel like it's an insider track that is then going to, flow across, especially for those of us in the West. So thank you.
Yeah, we've seen an uptick. Like, it was definitely a slow 2 quarters, but a lot of my clients are on July 1 fiscal years. So it's been a busy, I would say 3 to 4 weeks, which has been nice. We're definitely on an upswing.
Cool. I'm loving this. I love that you give us the temperature every time we talk. It's just amazing. We get the temperature also from our sponsors. They come to us from around the country, and they each do amazing and different things. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, of course, our friends at Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, JMT Consulting, Third Sector Company, Your Part-Time Controller, and Fundraisers Friday. These are the folks that make a difference in so many lives. Katie, we are now past 1,300 episodes in our 6th year. I want to witness to you. You called me out of the blue and said, I want to be a sponsor. And I really didn't know what a sponsorship relationship would look like. I kind of formulated one really quickly. And you've been with us since the beginning. So
I know it.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And you've helped a lot of people in our nonprofit sector. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You bet. Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
It's been a lot of fun. Hey, everybody, as we end each and every episode of the Nonprofit Show, we end with this mantra, and it goes like this: to stay well so you can do well. Thanks, everybody.